Hi, and welcome to Coach's Corner. Hope you had a good spring break. The Ponca City High Steppers is going to be the subject of this week's Coach's Corner because the High Steppers just got back from their national competition yearly in Denton, Texas, and we're going to find out how they did from Kristin Smith, their head coach, as you go down to the land of the mean green, North Texas State University, and to say that it is a unusual, busy place for 3 or 4 days in late March and early April is an understatement. You went to your national competition. Good year this year?
It was a great year this year, yes. Denton is crazy this time of the year, every year. The competition we go to is the biggest drill team competition in the country. And so, yeah, there are just tons and tons of teams there. And it always is crazy. But, you know, my girls, they always do very well. And this year we brought home 5 national championships. So we are incredibly proud of that, of course. My team was named national champion in prop, which we did hoops, in pom and in military. And then they were first runner-up in the high kick. They were 3rd in their large team division. And then they also rank you across divisions, so they will rank you against everyone who's there. And there were about 100 teams there, and we were 4th. So, you know, of course my girls would have loved to have won it all. And you know, when we won 3 categories, we were thinking, okay, we might have pulled this off. But you know, that's okay. We 4th place out of 100 or so teams is pretty darn good when you're a small school from Oklahoma. So they did great.
Your standards are very high, your team standards are very high, so the expectations are high, and unlike a lot of schools that participate simply going and being part of it, which is a good thing, there's a lot of pressure on that weekend too.
Oh, yeah, there is. There is a ton of pressure, and you know, there's some things we'd like to have back from our performances, some uncharacteristic mistakes, but overall I think my girls handle the pressure really, really well, and they perform under pressure all year. But this is immense. I mean, it really is immense pressure. And yes, they know that I have incredibly high standards, and they're very hard on themselves too, and expect perfection out of themselves.
And
so
when you say a smaller school from Oklahoma, what you have to realize is there's a lot of small Texas schools that are 3 or 4 times the size of Ponca City, Oklahoma. So
yes.
You really do see some Oklahoma schools, but you're seeing the very best of the best Texas had to offer.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And there's teams there I think there were teams there this year from about 12 or 14 states. They always put the flags of the states back behind. And I believe it was about 12 or 14 states that were there. And you're exactly right. It is the best that these states have to offer that come to this competition. So, and schools that are considered 6A schools in Texas, we're considered 6A and have an enrollment of 1,400. 1,400 isn't even their senior class. You know, those 6A schools are 5 and 6, 7,000 kids. So it is much different.
I mentioned the expectations that you have, and I want you to talk about that a little bit, because when people see your squad at a Friday night football game, or they see a halftime of a basketball game or a wrestling match, what they don't see are the tremendous number of hours in the summer and as school starts and the preparation that goes in. You use those performances to critique and to get better, but this is a sport that is developing as the year goes on for this one competition. So you know, you really set up for that one weekend, and I mentioned pressure and all that. It's because the program is at such a high level, and you and your team expect so much.
Yeah, it is very true. So many times my girls will come in after a Friday night football game or a basketball game, and we're watching tape, and I'm saying this needs to be fixed and this needs to be fixed, and we can't do this, and y'all know better than to do that. And a lot of times, especially for new girls, when maybe that's the first time they've been critiqued like that from a video, they're like, oh my gosh, but everybody said we were so awesome. And I'm like, that's great. And I'm glad that everybody that you talked to thought that you were so good. But as your coach, I'm trying to tell you this is what we've got to do to get better. Your parents can be your biggest fan, that's not my job as your coach. My job as your coach is to tell you what you've got to do to be able to get better and what you've got to do to be able to reach the level of competition that we're going to be facing in Denton, because those kids that we're looking at, those kids are putting on Broadway shows many times. And, you know, they have $150,000 to $200,000 budgets. And they've got girls who have been in a studio since they were 1 year old. And most teams in Texas, you can't make the team if you don't have 15 years of studio experience. Most of my girls have never stepped into a studio. So, yeah, it is very high expectations to get them where they have to be.
Probably if an outside audit was analyzed, they would find it remarkable, the consistency that your program has. And that's another thing, is that the reason you have high expectations is because you've done so well every year. You bring home so many trophies and so many top ratings that, you know, if you didn't, I'm sure at this point in your career and coaching, that you'd be surprised too.
Yeah, I would be. I would be very surprised, and I would be very disappointed. One of the it's strange that you say that, because I was talking to my husband before we went to nationals, and I said, I really feel like my teams are always very consistent, that I don't have a really up year and then a really down year. It's just pretty consistent that we're there, and it is. But every year it just gets more and more pressure to keep that up. So,
next question, because
sure.
And I have a lot of questions for you, but you're
Okay.
on this. How do you get girls, especially ones that don't have a lot of experience, and you bring them into the program, you find something that they can do, you know, can help your program,
Mm-hmm.
and by the time they're seniors, a lot of times they're soloists or they're team captains. And I know if you had a magic formula, you bottle it and coaches would get it all over for every sport. But in your mind, how do you take kids, and what is the key to developing and coaching and getting the most out of them, so by this time or the end of your competitive year, you get the very best out of them?
You know, Phil, I don't know if I can put my finger on one thing that we do. I would say one thing is consistency, that they know what I expect out of them, and I expect that out of them every day. And so that is one thing. There is a ton of repetition that we do in practice, things over and over, and we never mark through anything. They are going full out every single time that we practice. And I always tell them, you are going to perform the way you practice. You can't just all of a sudden turn something on when you're out in front of an audience. So always having them practicing exactly the way I expect them to perform is a really good tool to use. And like I said, repetition. And the other thing about it is I choreograph for my team for the majority of it. And I know my team better than anybody else does. So I really choreograph to their strengths. I know what they're good at. So I'll choreograph to their strengths. I won't put their weaknesses in the dance. And so I'm showing off what they do the best. So that helps too.
This weekend was kind of the wrap up. You'll start your process for your team next year, but I know a little bit about this just because my daughter was on your squad for 3 years. You're going to go through a process where you're going to lose an awful lot of girls, and you know, it's a sports term, but rebuild. You've done this a long time, but this is going to be one of your bigger rebuilding projects, isn't it?
It really is. It definitely is. I have never graduated 20 people before in my 21-year career. I have never done that. So yeah, it is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but we've got a lot of girls in the gym. There's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of desire out there. So it will be a challenge, but I like a challenge. That's what I feed off of, is a challenge. And I feed off people saying, wow, this is going to be really hard for you. And I'm like, all right, let's throw the gauntlet down. Let's go. So, yeah, I like it.
I know you can't name all of those girls that are leaving your program, but if you can remember the names of your senior co-captains, and I know those are always girls that, you know, all of them are special, but those girls have quite honestly done something to put themselves maybe a little bit higher up, whether it be their attitude. Sometimes it's not always talent. Sometimes it's just the most respected, or the girl that you feel like can lead the best. Who were some of those girls this year?
I'm glad you asked, because I also wanted to mention my officers did compete at nationals also, and they brought home our other two national championships, and they were national champions in the kick, and they were national champions in the palm, and then they were second runner-up in the hip hop. They were 6th overall in the large team category. Both officer and team, the competition is just crazy. So they were a little disappointed with 6th, but because their expectations are so high. But they did a phenomenal job when you look at the talent they're up against. Susie Morris was my captain, and she is, oh my gosh, she is going to stand out to me for years and years. She is a wonderful, wonderful young lady. She has amazing character, and she is really a natural leader. She has done a great job for me this year. So she was my captain. My lieutenants were Lennon Lessert, Annie Keithley, Abigail Lee, and of course I always forget someone. Michelle Martin was the other one. Those were my lieutenants, and all 4 of those girls. Lennon Lessert is crazy talented. She is going to be so hard to replace. Haley Hand was not an officer, but she actually stepped in for us. We had a situation, and one of my officers didn't compete with us at nationals, but she stepped in for us and filled that 6th hole for our officers, and she did an amazing job for us. So my lieutenants, Annie Keithley, I have loved to just watch her grow. That poor girl, I don't think she felt like she could do anything right when she was a sophomore, and then kind of all of a sudden her junior year she came into her own, and I mean she was just great, probably one of my best kickers on the team, just wonderful. Michelle Martin is just a good girl. Abigail Lee, oh my gosh, so smart. Hopefully is going to find out this week that she's going to Harvard, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. So I mean, just not only they're good dancers, they're just amazing young ladies.
Right, and that's part of it. You have tryouts coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that from my experience with you, there's no troublemakers, and there's nobody that can't handle their grades, and there's nobody that, when you're talking about what do you do as a coach that maybe you would like to be able to mentor to younger coaches. And I thought the one thing that was commitment, because when you select a squad, it's not only the kids but your parents.
Yes.
It's a real commitment, and that's the reason. I think one of the reasons why you are successful is that everybody knows going in. There are no secrets. It takes a lot of commitments from people, the girls mainly, but you work awfully hard. It's very rewarding. But commitment's a word that I know you probably stress quite a bit, especially when you select your team and you're getting them prepared for what's about to happen.
That is definitely true. That's one of the things I say at the parent meeting right before my tryout clinic is this is a full year commitment. If this is something that you're just thinking, oh, football season would be fun, but after that, then you're not the person for this team. And this is truly pretty much 10, 11 months out of the year that we're going. I mean, we get back from nationals on Sunday, and the very next morning we're in tryout clinic. So we're not taking a break. And it is rough, and it is long, and the girls are tired. But when you're that committed to something and when you're that dedicated to something, that's okay. I mean, tired really doesn't matter.
Have you ever had to replace this many girls on your squad?
No, I have not.
So there's going to be some positions open, and I know you hope that you get a lot of girls to try out.
I do.
Even if they aren't sure, try out, because it's a great experience. And like you said, you have some girls that maybe aren't the most talented, but they make it, and then with a lot of hard work, they'll be surprised at what happens.
Oh, they definitely will be. I mean, looking at, and you have had this experience with Tatum being on the team, what they look like at the beginning of the year when they go to camp compared to what they look like at nationals, it's night and day.
Yeah.
It is night and day. But all of my girls are in the gym every single day working as hard as they can. And that's what it takes, is kids who will do that, who will actually give you 100% every day.
Absolutely. So Denton was good this year, huh?
Denton was good this year. We had a good time. I was exhausted, but we did have a great time, and the girls were, they were disappointed that they didn't win overall, but taking home 3 national championships as a team and 2 as an officer group, it's pretty dang good.
Where do you put all this stuff up there? There's only so much room in the trophy case.
I know. We switch them out, and all our other trophies are in my storage room, which is getting pretty full. I need to clean that out. But yeah, we'll put the new trophies in our trophy case at the high school. So
we need to get something where all those are always displayed.
I agree. It'd be
that's
really cool.
That's a lot of work, but congratulations. Your program is so successful, and I know you know that, but. Starts all over again, doesn't it?
Oh,
when are your tryouts this week or
next week? They're April 4th, Wednesday the 4th. Yeah. Yes, and I don't know. Just one of the best things about being the coach of this team is that I don't have to tell people how good my girls are. I mean, every time they step on the field, their dance speaks for itself, and I love to just kind of step back and watch them. I mean, it truly is an honor to coach them.
Right. Well,
just great girls.
You mentioned. The difference between first and fifth may be a leg kick that goes a quarter of an inch higher than another leg kick.
That's very true.
When you watch the precision with these young ladies, it's hard to see any discrepancies. A coach can see it, a judge can see it, but you mentioned how proud the moms and dads are because it's hard for us to see. So you're talking about a very, very small move maybe being the difference between winning a national championship and finish second or third runner-up.
That's exactly right.
And
that's exactly right.
That's a little bit of the pressure too. So.
Ooh, yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the difference in points between second, third, and fourth place in large team category was 1 point each. We beat the fourth place team by 1 point. The second place team beat us by 1 point. And then Rowlett is who won it all, and they were 6 points, I think, ahead of us. That's really not a lot, and especially, when you see it. And I always say this, the large team category is like walking into a buzzsaw. It seriously is. That is where, oh my gosh, so much talent is concentrated. And like I said, we were third in our category, large team, and then fourth overall. So you see the top 3 teams were, the 2 were large team, and then one other that kind of snuck in there that was a medium team. That's where all the talent is in the category that we are in. So,
but you've been to that competition. You like it.
Yes, I do.
You like the way it's run, the operation.
Yes,
it's fair, and so that's why you go back every year to that.
It is, and there's not a ton of drill team competitions. There's really not. There's not a ton of national competitions out there. So we kind of get one shot at it, and what happens. So, but I love that competition, and I like it because it is the biggest one in the country, and. If you're going to go, let's go for the biggest one. Well, so,
as always, congratulations. I know that you're very proud of all those girls, whether they finish first or last.
Oh, I am.
They're a great group of young ladies. It's kind of hard to bond. You bond with them so much during that weekend, and then you have to say goodbye to them.
I know.
Usually the bonding takes place early, but every year that bonding takes place. And,
it is.
For those seniors, you say goodbye. So.
Yeah, and it truly is going to be one of the hardest years for me to say goodbye to those girls.
I knew it would be when I saw you at basketball senior night, and you stood out there for about 20 minutes as your girls came out, and I went, "Oh my gosh, she's never had this this type of thing." The other thing is, though, for people that don't know, during the process of this past school year, high stepping season, your husband was named police chief of Ponca City, so you probably. Maybe you get to take a couple of seconds to enjoy that with him now too. So
that is true. That is true. That was a very exciting thing.
It kind of happened, and you went, "Okay, good, Donnie, but we got to get ready for nationals."
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, but that's an amazing thing for him. That's great.
A wonderful thing, and
he's worked hard.
Great job. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thank
you.
Kristin
Smith Bowen. She's our high stepper coach. Congratulations to all the high steppers. This week's edition of Coach's Corner.